I'm Chris Beard from f11 Landscapes. Thanks for joining me. We're here today on the Fylde coast at Cleveley. We're going to make some coastal landscape images. And today we're going to be talking all about decisions. Good images are all about making good decisions. So today I'm going to talk through some of the decisions we landscape photographers have to make. There's a popular location called Mary's Shell. This is exactly where we are on the screen. And if you would like to know how to turn a scene like this into an image like this, then stay tuned. So here I am down by the shell. As you can see, it is absolutely massive. I'm 6'3" and it towers over me. Probably, 10, 11, maybe 12 feet tall. Now in our images, when we start taking them, this is what we're going to have to be very careful of, and I'll explain why later. So let's just take a walk around the shell and just have a look at it from some different angles. So as you can see, it has a rather good coating of green weed on it and moss. If I just pull back, so that's quite an impressive angle, isn't it? Unfortunately, with a storm that happened recently, the base has been exposed, so I think we need a high tide to kind of cover that. We'll just wander. There's another photographer here, just sat behind me. Say hello. It is. So here we are from the other side now. Just walking around, you can see the kind of high tide line around the shell. I hope you're not picking up this wind noise too badly. Now, say there's some interesting shapes you can make, and I'm going to be shooting from back up there on those steps. I think that's where we're going to get the best view. So yeah, quite an impressive structure. So now we're here, it might be an idea to tell you a little bit about this shell. As you saw when I was down there, it's about 12 foot high, and it's just one of a number of works of art on what they call the Mystic Trail up here at Cleveley. The Mystic Trail's from a children's book called The Sea Swallow, which brings together a lot of local myths and legends. Find out more on the Visit Cleveley's website, and I'll put a link in the description for you. The ogre was another character from the book, and there are a few more dotted along this coastline. So if you come down here on a nice summer's day, it looks sunny today, but I can tell you it's cold and windy. Now I did mention something else down here that you can photograph that a lot of photographers and visitors actually miss or can't find. So come with me and I'll show you exactly where it is. Okay, so we're heading right over there into the distance at the end of those rocks, and let's see what we'll find down there. Some lovely patterns here in the sand, little pools. That might make a good image. Yeah, these really are interesting patterns and little pools. So the tide's coming in now. I think the tide will actually clean up a lot of the footprints and mess that's around, so maybe it's one I can come back and have a look at after high tide. This will also depend on which angle the sun's at. So the sun, as you can see by my shadow, is almost directly behind me at the moment. So that's another good thing. Having side lighting puts a lot of depth and structure into your landscape images. Here we are. This is the ogre from the children's story. Right here at the end of the rocks. It's probably in shadow, but that's why a lot of people miss it. It kind of blends in because it gets covered with the tide twice a day. It gets covered in these barnacles and green moss. It does get cleaned. Gets cleaned every couple of years and makes it easier to find. But yeah, most people miss that. Now it is best when I photograph this is photographing it at a high tide, so you kind of hide the rocks behind and the foreground, and he kind of just appears from the tide. You'll need a long lens, you need to be way back from where we've come from, and you'll probably need the sun to come up from behind, which is usually June, early summer. So that's another one you can come out here and photograph. So let's have a talk about some of those decisions I spoke about earlier. Composition is obviously the biggest decision that we have to make. We also have to think about what format we're going to shoot in. 4:3, 3:2, 16:9, or square format, 1:1. That's usually dictated by what is around your composition. Shooting height. Now that's something that's very much overlooked. A lot of photographers just set their tripod up at eye level and shoot from there. If you do that, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to get a little bit more spectacular of an image. So I'm going to set my camera up now. I'm going to look out at the shell. As you can see, the tide's coming in, and I'll have a little chat to you once I've got my camera set up and I've made a few of those decisions I've been talking about. So you can see the tide coming in now. That's where I was, down there, just on the surf line. I've come back up onto the steps now, a little safer. So there's beautiful blue sky on that side, and you come round past the shell, looking towards Blackpool, and yeah, there's some nice light rays coming there now, but there's thick cloud. So the tide brought in this little bit of a tree stump here, so I've made use of that as foreground interest. But now the tide's getting a bit higher, it's moving with every tide the tide comes in, so it's become a little bit unstable. But we've got it, and it's just about using what's ever around you to create a little bit of foreground interest. So I said about using a 10-stop neutral density filter. I have one here. It's always best to give it a good clean with a microfiber cloth before you use it on both sides. And then I use the Lee system. So you attach it into your holder. I prefer to do it beforehand. Now, something that's very important. I like to make my images in camera as close as possible to the finished image. So I'm going to adjust the white balance now. Okay, we call our menu system up. and we go down to white balance, and we go along until we come to the Kelvin setting. So it's really easy to set a custom white balance on our cameras. We come into our menu, scroll along to the white balance, click on that, move our selector along to where it says Kelvin, and then increase that till we get to 10,000. Click set, and that's applied. How easy is that? We then compose our image. Double check the focus, because we won't be able to do this once our filter's on. Okay, there we go. And f16, that's giving me a 50th of a second. So this is going to slow the exposure down by 10 stops. So we carefully put that on our camera. The nice people at Lee Filters have brought out a really good app which is available on both Apple and Android, and it's free, and it helps you to work out your exposure time when doing long exposures. When you open the app, you'll see it has the little stopper, the big stopper, and the super stopper. Using the wheel on the left hand side, you dial in your shutter speed without filters, and then the wheel on the right hand side gives you your exposure time. You can see it's calibrated to 1/3 of a stop exposure increments. So I've dialed in 1/50th of a second, which is what my exposure without filters gave me, and the blue dial's telling me I need an exposure of around 20 seconds. But I think I'm going to give it a little bit more because it is a dark scene and I just want to overexpose it very slightly. So if I go for about 30 seconds, that's giving me 2/3 of a stop overexposure. Hiya. And we'll see what that comes out like. Old age, you need the glasses. I always bring a couple of these cheap pairs out with me. And that's quite ethereal. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this short trip to Mary's Shell. And while I continue photographing away here, I'll just leave you with a few images that I've taken at this location in the past. See you again on another video. Bye.